Welcome to a training session on After Effects. This here will be a little bit more intermediate session coming off of the 100 series. So we'll go ahead and get started. And within this session, this will be pretty much taking a Photoshop file and bringing it into After Effects. So here we are with a Photoshop file. You can see my layer panels on the right. And within my layer panels, we'll just go over just the layers that are here so we can compare apples to apples once we're inside After Effects. So right now I have several layers and I'll go ahead and group that. So this is my title. If I can type, title. And then we have, let me bring this out of here. I'm getting a little jittering here. So we have a title and we have an image that is clipped to this white square. And then we have our actual background of that group. And then we have our background that has an image clipped to it. Okay. And I'm going to actually duplicate this and command click, select that layer and add a mask, turn that off, and I'll show you why I did that later. So we have our project file and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and jump into After Effects. All right, we are here in After Effects. If you want to bring in a Photoshop file, you can pretty much just double click in this area over here and select the file that you want to import. You can just double click. And I don't have any layer styles on my layer, so I can just keep that where it is. And I want to retain layer sizes. Press OK. And you can see our Photoshop file has been brought in, and you can see it by the thumbnail. It has a 1280 by 720 resolution or aspect ratio, which we set up in Photoshop. So it just brings it in just like that. Here are our layers within that file, and you can see three actual what's called pre-comps. And that is basically dependent on if you have a group or any clip layer. So let's go ahead and open up our main Project After Effects file, our composition. So this layer over here is pretty much our assets manager. So if I want to actually bring in, so if I want to, let's see, you can see the preview over here. If I want to bring in that layer again, I can just drop it in. I'll have another instance of it, and you can see it also drop down over here. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. We don't need it. And so let's go over the layers. So again, you can see this icon. It just means that it's a pre-comp, which means you can double click it and you can see the layers that are within that. Again, if I go back into Photoshop, you can see the layers that are inside this group. I have my three layers. So if you have a group in the Photoshop file, it will turn it into a pre-comp. Or if you have a layer that is clipped to another layer, it will take these two layers and create a pre-comp, which is this layer, clip. And you see our two layers here. So I created this layer earlier, if you remember. I'll just shut that off, and it's clipped. So any layer that has a clipping mask on it will just merge down. It will just merge that clipping, that mask. If you can see, it doesn't have a clipping mask on it. It just go ahead and flattens that layer and cut out everything that the mask had around that layer. So just be mindful of that. If you have any mask on the layer, it's just gonna pretty much do this to it in After Effects. So we don't need that. Let me just delete that. And also, if you haven't really modified the file as far as like creating new groups and such, you can actually change these. So if I want to change the name of this, so to image clip, hit save. Actually turn this back on, hit save. You can see it's now renamed to image clip. And if I select the layer, go to reveal in composition, it'll show me where that layer has been used. And it is this file. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started a little bit more. Where are we? So our text. So here's our text. We actually can't use it. So let me take this out first because I don't want it in a pre-comp. So I'll select my layers, copy, come back in, hit paste, get rid of this. In my text, you can see it has a Photoshop layer, Photoshop icon next to it, which means it's still just a layer, but we actually want to be able to adjust this text. So what you can do is select that layer, right click, go to create and convert. And now you can see the icon has changed to a T, which means I can go in and adjust the text if I need to. Press escape to get out. And then I'll do that again for the other layer, the other type layer. Go to convert, boom. We in there. We are in there. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, so we have that set up. And we have the logo. But it's a raster layer, and I want everything to be sharp and clean. So let me bring in my actual logo. Go to libraries, color, boom. Drag that in, and just scale it down. Press S on the layer, and you can get your scale. Just scale it down, somewhere around there. I don't know. Boom. Hold down Shift. Oh. Get it somewhere around there. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to actually delete the original layer. And you can see it has the Illustrator icon next to it. So that actually tells you that you can right click on it, go to create, just like we did with the type layers, the text layers, and go to create shapes from vector layer. And now we actually have vector outline. We have actual shapes. We have the shapes from the actual logo, which means I can go in and split this logo if I wanted to. Between this shape layer and this shape layer. So if you twirl down, go to contents, group, you can see two paths. So this is animatable as well. You can see a stopwatch. If you see a stopwatch anywhere, you can create a keyframe animation from that. So I'll just name this. Select my layer, press enter. Logo. All right, so what else do we need to adjust? What else do we need to set up? So this should actually be deleted. Turn this on. So open that up. I'm going to lock this so I don't move it. And if I want to bring a new image in, I can do it there. But that's set up. That's fine. I'm going to select these two. Click on the swatches on this left and go to blue. Whatever. Yellow is fine. So that I know these two are linked somehow. I know these two are together. Background. Okay, so we have this background. I'm gonna lock this as well. So again, it's gonna keep the transparency of this, the alpha channel of this background group. Oops, go back. Now let's go to our background color. That's fine, but maybe I want to change this in the future. Actually, let's turn it off because I want to keep that color. I'll figure it out later. So new, I'll just drag out a new layer. Move this to the bottom and title this background. I'll turn this layer on, go to press I. Let's actually select this. Double click. Copy this color code, boom, background, and select, paste, enter, turn off. All right, now I have my background. So if I want to change that, I can just come up here and adjust the color if I need to. Okay, so now we have our setup. And let's go ahead and build this out. So I'm going to save this first. So call this AE training 201. Save that. Let's see. I want this to zoom in. So this group. So what is that? This one. Okay. So this these two belong together. So what I'm going to do is link these two. So over here, you'll see this twirl, say parent and link. If you don't see that, you can right click up here, go to columns, parent and link. So I'm going to clip this to this layer. And so if I move this cover, that other layer will move with it. Okay, so let's animate this. If I press P, well, I have that selected. I'm going to ahead and click this stopwatch, and you can see a keyframe has been created. So I'm going to move that over and just move this to the right. And I'm going to put my playhead on 1 second and press N on the keyboard, and I'll just move my work area to where I need it to be. I'm going to press spacebar, and you can see we just have like this simple animation going on. What I want to do now is adjust that animation. So I select those, go to keyframe assistant, easy ease. But I know I'm not going to adjust the y-axis, and I want a more controlled easing on this. So I can right click on this, go to separate dimension, and then just get rid of the stopwatches on the y position. And now I'm only left with the x. So I press U. And it'll bring up only those keyframes. And now that I have those selected, I'm going to go to in my graph editor, which is like a curve adjustment. So I'll bring this down, it's going to smooth out. If I play that, you can see the difference. So if I undo that, see how it just snaps. If I redo that, it glides in just a little bit more. So let me just pull that out. Give it a little bit more. And adjust this. Like so. Okay, so another thing I can do is adjust a motion blur. So I want to turn that on first, boom, and then activate it here. So it's already activated. If I play it, you can see just a little bit more blur there. One thing you can actually do to control your motion blur is to go to comp settings, go to advanced, and you can adjust the shutter angle, and that'll change what your motion blur will look like. Sometimes better than the default, but it also will tax your render when you render this out. So if I go to comp settings, advanced, you can see, just look how it smears. All right. So you can play around with that. You can get a little bit more better of a motion blur. So that's just a quick tip. Let's give this a little bit more life. So I'm going to adjust this background image just slightly. So position, hit keyframe, that's where I want it to end, and just move forward or move backwards in time and just move it to the left a little bit. Just a little bit. And then I'm also going to scale, so I'm going to Shift S, and it's also going to keep my position keyframes. I'm just going to scale it. So I'll select all those. You can press Shift F9 or just right click, keyframe, and easy ease. Let that happen for about 2 seconds and go back into the main comp. Let's bring this out to about 3. Okay. And again, I want that to be just a little bit more, I want that to be smoother. So if I go into my graph editor, I can smooth that transition down a bit. Okay, so it gives me this weird drop down. I don't want that, so I select both of these. I think what I'm going to do is just get rid of the position right now. I don't want to play around with this. It's just a quick tutorial. Okay, so then I want that. I want that to last just just a little bit longer. So maybe there, and go back in. And maybe that's just too much. So let's say I want the keyframe to scale on that. Get rid of that and bring it out. Okay, so that's a little too subtle, so I'll undo that. Probably come here, add a keyframe, get rid of these two, bring this out, hit play. All right, so guess we got that down, and then let's animate this logo just a little bit. So I'm gonna duplicate it, turn the first one off. I'm gonna delete this one. So that was path one. If I turn this one on and delete path one. So I have both of those. All right, so I'm going to link these two. All right, and let's go to position. And let me just, I want to start like right here. Right, and I'm going to zoom in. All right, just it's going to do something like that. B. Okay, and I'm going to actually add a Gaussian blur. So I have a FX, the FX panel, control panel here. So I'm going to type in, I have some presets set in. So pretty much it's just, actually it was the wrong one. Let me go to this one. So I have some presets already set up where it creates some keyframes, which is a fast blur and the opacity. And what that does is creates these two keyframes where it turns the opacity from 0 to 100, and then it blurs my image, but it starts very blurry and it ends at a 0 blur. So it just gives you that. So let me move my position so that you can still see what's going on. There we go, just like that. And then I want the second logo to do the same, but start just a little bit later. So here. Okay, so you see it's just really subtle, but it gets there. All right, and I want the second one to have a slight delay on its position. So yeah, I'll just do that, add a keyframe, and just move it down just slightly. And just first of all, let me just move it here. And I want the blur, let me see my position, it happened just a little bit later. And that does it for me, that's fine. And then the next thing I want to do is actually change the color to the After Effects logo color. So how do we do that? So these two, what I'm going to do is go to contents. Okay, and fill. Okay, so I want the fill of this one to be the same as the fill of this one. So I click on that. Actually, you don't have to click on that. Bring it down. So you see color, drag this pinwheel, this pick whip, and just drag it back down to the color of this one. So now we can change the color of this. Just do color picker and boom. So now when I change the color of this one, the second one will change as well. All right, so what else? Just double click here and just change that to 201. Okay, So let's go ahead and preview what we have so far. Cool. And yeah, so it's not that crazy. So once you get the handle on the interface in After Effects, you can pretty much do whatever you can imagine in After Effects. So let's also change out this layer, right? So we have our asset manager. If I go in and select this image, so again, it's like an asset manager. If I want to bring in another image, I can just drop it in. And let's turn on the transparency. I'm going to press S to scale it down somewhere around there and move it here. Let me scale that back up. And what I'm going to do is turn off the other one. Go over to the effects panel. I'll type in optics. Make sure this layer is selected and double click. And this will do something really, really cool. So I'm going to pump it up this way, but I'm going to reverse it. So it starts out kind of wide and brings it back in. So I'm going to add a keyframe there. Move to the start of my layer and just reset that back to 0. But I want to flip the actual effects. So boom, boom. And again, add some ease to it. I'm going to get it smooth, you know, like Barry White. Turn it and go to keyframe assist. Easy ease. All right, so we have that. I'm going to... And if you go back, look at something. Okay, so where are we? Clip. Okay, so you don't see the effect taking hand because where we are in this composition's timeline does not line up to this composition's timeline. So you can see we're right here. I want that effect to show here, to kind of start here and then end around here. So let me move my playhead to about right there. I'm going to double click and you can see where the timeline is here. So I'm going to just move my layer over and just extend it back some more, increase the duration of that layer. So when you click on the edge, you actually increase the duration, but when you actually move it, you move everything with that layer, like the keyframes and whatnot. So I want to extend it back so that the layer isn't shut off when that, you know, during the beginning of the composition. And if I go back into my main comp, we'll see now that we can see the animation actually taking effect. Okay, so that's why I went in and kept that as like a composition instead of bringing those layers back in, because you can come in and add whatever you know, image or picture you might want to put there, and have that you know, animate on this side. And let's do something that I usually always do on my animations, is do like some kind of glare wipe. So let me go back here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new adjustment layer. Curves. Just double click and just boost it up, and maybe go to linear. Pivot. No. Let's try linear dodge. There we go. So linear dodge, I'm going to create a mask so that I can control just that wipe. So I'm going to add a mask there. You can see it. And let's open that mask up. So if I select my layer and press M, I can also press F to go to the feather. You can see the edges start to fade away. So we'll just go ahead and lock this out. We don't really need this one, so I'm gonna close it. Okay, so let's adjust this mask. So if I go to M, select mask path, and I just want to move this out. So hit this keyframe. You see it creates a keyframe. I'm gonna move it over to the start of the timeline, and I'm just gonna move it over. Oops, double click, move it over, boom, just like that. Yeah, so you can see that happens. Okay, so that works for me. And let's let it happen a little bit later. Just move this. Come back, hit play. All right, so I want that image to be the newer image. So let's go back to clip. And what I can do is just copy this to this layer. Actually, wherever you copy and wherever you paste is going to be wherever your timeline is. So, I mean, I kind of like, you should put your keyframes at the beginning of a layer. So I just hit paste. And I think it's because our anchor points are at different spots. So I'm just going to reset that. So my view center should be right there. Okay, and now I have to move it somewhere around there, I believe that is. And I want to smooth that out a bit because it's too harsh for me. Let me go here, hit save for a second, boom, boom. Just scrub through that. Okay, so I don't like how it starts like that. So let's add a blur. So I select my layer, come over here, go to blur, and let's use a fast Gaussian. That's fine. So add a Gaussian, blurriness 0. Let me pull up my keyframes over here, and I'm going to turn that up there. And let's play it in the main composition. So here we are at the end of the project. I hope you were able to follow along. We were able to take a Photoshop file and bring it into After Effects and manipulate the layers from the Photoshop file. We took the actual raster text that was brought in from Photoshop, and we were able to turn those into editable text. We were also able to bring it in a layer from our libraries panel and turn that into an actual vector layer, a vector shape that we can manipulate, as well as create compositions within the composition, such as this, and create just a setup so that I can bring in whatever image you want and create that effect on top of that. We're also shown how to create an adjustment layer to create this wipe. And now once all that's done and you're ready to export your file, you can go to Composition, Add to Media Encoder Q, and from there your file will be exported. But keep in mind, wherever your work area is, that's what's going to export. So be sure to set this to whatever you want to export. So that brings us to the end of the project, and if there's any questions, please feel free to send me a message. I'll be your host, Carlos Phillips. See you next time.